Imagine a cozy cafe. Everything's dark oak wood and inviting. It smells of freshly baked cinnamon rolls and freshly brewed coffee. There are books on display and a cat sleeping soundly on the counter. The place is filled with peace and calm, and there are people enjoying their drinks while reading or writing. There are no computers or phones to be seen. It's as if time has stopped and there's nowhere to rush. In another room, there's a group of people engaged in a quiet conversation, making new connections and learning new things. It's a friendly atmosphere of a tight-knit community that welcomes anyone new. The entire space is filled with magic. Magic that comes from books, chocolate, and mysterious liquid bakes. But also from friendship, good conversation, and the cats who always keep you company and deliver exactly what you need. Welcome back to the Cat Coach Café. Me and the cat coaches, Aragorn, Apricot, and Princ, are thrilled to see you again. This is a cozy space where we meet once a month to slow down, tune to the season, revive some old seasonal traditions, often influenced by my Czech origins, and meet people from all walks of life, as you would in any cafe, who all share one love though, the love for cats. In today's episode, we will explore the magic of the midsummer night and learn to communicate with animals with the UK's most highly regarded animal communicator, Pea Horsley, who will share some fascinating stories and messages from animals, as well as invite you all to explore animal communication yourselves. And a little surprise, your Cat Coach Aragorn will also share his message through Pea. And of course, your Cat Coach Princ will share his wisdom through Cat Coach Diaries, as always. So lots of goodness in store, just like any other time. But before we get to it, let us fully ease into the present moment with our short drink meditation. Get cozy, grab that hot drink of yours, or perhaps cold, depending on what the weather is like, and curl up next to your cat. This time is for you. No multitasking needed or allowed. Just quiet your mind and let's start. Wrap the palms of your hands around your mug. Let the warm feeling fill your body. Doesn't it feel just so comforting? That warmth coming from the mug to your palms. Close your eyes for a moment and let the warmth travel all the way through your body. Now take a delicious deep breath and then exhale with a sigh. And then exhale with a sigh. Open your eyes and look at your drink. Notice the color. What color is it? Then take the mug closer to you and deeply inhale its scent. Do it once again with your eyes closed. What does it smell like? Can you recognize the ingredients? Or perhaps get a more of an emotional response to the smell? Does it smell like chamomile, perhaps, or coffee, or rather like joy? Does it bring back some memories? Or perhaps it makes you feel stronger, more inspired, more alive. And maybe it just brings you to the exotic far, and maybe it just brings you to the exotic lands where it grew. And perhaps it's a combination of all of these. Just take it all in. And when you're ready, take your first sip. Slowly. Fully taking in its flavor. Does the taste surprise you? Or is it just how you expected it based on the smell? Take another sip and once again notice how it makes you feel. What emotions it brings. What memories or ideas. If you have a notebook and pen by your side, feel free to pause the podcast and make some notes if you feel inspired. And then, whenever you're ready, continue sipping your drink at your own pace while listening to today's episode. Welcome to June and the beginning of summer, when the sun truly takes over our world and covers it in warmth. Sometimes a bit too intense for my own taste. It's the time when the energy reaches its peak and everything is going outward, which, for those of us who thrive in the darker months, can be a little overwhelming. So we need to take extra care of ourselves and our energy during this time of year. Find strategies that help us rebalance and rejuvenate. Maybe it's spending some time alone in nature, taking a morning swim in a quiet lake, perhaps finding a shade and spending the day dreaming away with a book, which just never feels as good as in summer. Whatever it is for you, when summer just gets too much, there are plenty of opportunities to make the most of the season, even for those of us who will always feel better living in the inward energy rather than the outward. Just seek the best ways to nurture that need to go inwards. For me, that morning swim in a quiet lake truly does wonders. Nothing like looking at the calm lake and then immersing myself in its life-giving energy and becoming one with the water. I really love that feeling. It's not something I can do every summer morning because, for one, it is a short drive away and the lake is naturally very cold, so the days need to be really hot for it to warm up a little bit. But as often as I can, I would do this and really, really enjoy it because that's something you can never do in winter. So, whatever the season you feel most comfortable in, always find the one thing you can never do in the other seasons and that you genuinely love. So, what is that thing for you? What do you most love about summer that you can't do at any other time of the year? In many languages, the month of June is named after the Latin word Junus, which is associated with the goddess Juno, the goddess of marriage, childbirth, women, and family. In Czech language, the name is derived from the word red, which may be related to the reddening of strawberries and red as a typical color of this month, when a number of ripening fruits are characterized by turning red as well. In that respect, June really is a gift, as I love strawberries and all the berries that ripen, the red currants that make perfect sour pies, raspberries, which are perfect on its own, and cherries that taste like summers of my childhood. The gifts of nature we are showered with after long months of waiting truly are a beautiful symbol of how sweet life can be. And perhaps that's a beautiful way to look at this time of year and make it our guiding principle for the weeks and months ahead. Just how sweet can we make our lives? I dare you to explore that idea. In which ways can you bring more sweetness into your life? And which of your goals and dreams are ready to be harvested too? Are they bringing more sweetness to your life? If not, what is their purpose and how is achieving them making your life feel? Isn't there a hint of sweetness after all? A hint of lust and passion perhaps? And if not, how can you turn them sweeter or reconsider what to plant next time? According to statistics, June has a strong influence on the weather in July and August. This means that after a warmer than usual June, July or August will probably be warmer than average. So be careful how you tend to your life and your energies this month. Whatever conditions you prepare for yourself and your dreams this month, it will determine the rest of summer. While we cannot influence the weather, we can influence the weather conditions we are creating in our lives. So what will you choose? Frantic heat and not enough moisture? Or perhaps soft breeze, light rain, and just the right amount of warmth and sunshine? Whatever you decide your life needs this month to prosper, remember to manage your energies in a supporting way. Now, by the end of the month, we are entering a truly magical time, a time of the summer solstice and the midsummer night. According to ancient belief, the solstice opened the way for the magical powers of the earth because the life-giving sun had to turn and was therefore powerless. And that was the very moment when it was said that it was possible to capture the mysterious earth forces springing up from the depths to the surface. However, when the sun turned, the spells were over. It was said that the third night after the summer solstice is the time when the secrets of the mountains are revealed, and it is possible to see beings normally hidden from human sight, such as elves, dwarves, fairies, or fairies. Fairy tales also preserve the belief of our ancestors that on the third day after the solstice, mountain beings can show hidden paths to treasures. According to Slavic legends, on this day, the gods Kovlad and Runa bless plants and multiply their healing power. And if you paid enough attention, plants were even believed to reveal what their power was and what they were intended for. This is also why medicinal herbs were collected from midnight to noon of the following day. It was also said that if you saw a golden flowering fern while collecting plants, it would show you the way to treasure, ensure wealth, or give you some magical ability. Because this was the night of all the nights, a person could gain various magical abilities, from understanding animal speech to invisibility. As magical as Midsummer Night is, though, it is once again a time when it's necessary to protect oneself, your family, your home, and your surroundings from evil powers that in times of turning points, such as the Witches' Night on April 30th or Halloween on October 31st, rise from the depths and can cause harm. A typical protective symbol of this night are midsummer bonfires, burned on the hills above the villages. The light from the bonfire was supposed to illuminate the entire village, and that's blessed, because where the light of the midsummer bonfire fell, nothing bad could occur. As I already mentioned, the midsummer period, which lasts from approximately June 20th and the next 4 evenings, was associated with superstitions about the greatest power of herbs. Herbalists and even doctors knew that herbs collected during Midsummer Night's Eve had a greater healing effect, And today we know that this trust has a logical basis. The herbalist experiences of our grandmothers are based on the observation of nature. From spring to the summer solstice, plants are pulling into bloom, which means that their content and therefore medicinal substances travel from the roots upwards to their above ground parts. Thus, at this time, their medicinal powers peak. For many healing and magical practices, 9 herbs were used, which had to be plucked at 9 borders. The following herbs are most commonly included in the 9. However, the 9 can differ greatly depending on the location, and in reality, they can be any 9 herbs. But some of the most common are St. John's wort, chamomile, wild thyme, elderflower, yarrow, ribwort plantain, sage, mullein, and nettle. So take a walk somewhere where there's wild nature during these magical days and see what herbs you can find. It is said that herbs we most need will find their way to us, so go and see which 9 herbs can become your unique midsummer blend. The revered tree of the summer solstice is the oak, the tree of fertility, ideas, and inspiration. The oak and its wood or leaves were attributed magical properties such as protecting homes from thunder. Burning oak leaves was supposed to summon wind. Oak wreaths hung from cow horns were supposed to provide strength and health to cattle. The oak was also used in healing, for example, by hanging the belongings of a sick person on the tree. An oak was often planted when a child was born, especially if it was a boy. Now, as we mentioned, Midsummer Night is the night we can understand animals. I thought it's the perfect time to invite into the Cat Coach Café an animal communicator, Pea Horsley. Pea Horsley is the UK's most highly regarded animal communicator. She is a TEDx speaker, grounded teacher, empowering mentor, and best-selling author of Heart to Heart, The Animal Communicator's Guide Through Life, Loss, and Love, and Animal Communication Made Easy. She has taught in over 16 countries and across 4 continents, helping thousands of people to get back in touch with their intuition and develop skills in animal communication. And I was thrilled to talk to her about her amazing journey and all that she has learned from animals. Let's start with your own story into animal communication, because I'm sure there's loads of skeptics out there, and I think your own story is a very good example to open minds of these skeptics.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for asking that. I had been working in theatre as a stage manager for 15 years, really grounded job, very, very practical. And there was something in me that said, I want to go back to my first love, which is animals. And I remember sitting down with my partner and going through all these different jobs, and it was actually like none of those. And I said, I think it's something else. In fact, I don't even know what the name is, but I think it's something else. And then what happened is we adopted my first dog together called Morgan. And he arrived, and there was a feeling that he was sad. I just sat next to him in his bed and just felt this deep sadness. And I thought maybe I'm doing something wrong because I know cats. I've always lived with cats, but he's my first dog and I don't know what's going on. And then I got invited to an animal communication workshop by the animal home where I adopted him from. And it was get to know your dog better. And I thought, okay, great. I need to go to that. And I thought animal communication really was the politically correct way of reading animal behavior in order to understand them. So I went along expecting that kind of workshop. And then very quickly, we realized it wasn't that at all, because this teacher was telling all these kind of like Dr. Dolittle stories, and there were 20 of us sitting in a circle. everybody was like sobbing, and there was me, I'm sitting there with my arms crossed, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what's going on? Why am I here? And I nearly walked out at lunchtime because I didn't believe a word of it. This is the first time I've ever heard of animal communication.
Mm.
And then we were partnered in the afternoon. Something in me made me stay. We were partnered in the afternoon, and I was given a photograph face down, and my partner had a picture of my cat Texas face down. And we were instructed to ask questions. First, we had to sense who's the animal before we turned the photo. And I just thought rabbit and turned it over, and it was a rabbit. And I thought, well, that's just a fluke. And then we had to ask, what's your favorite food? Who's your best friend? What's your favorite activity? And everybody is like knuckling down with their notebooks with their picture. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is crazy. I mean, I was looking at this picture and I said, you're just a rabbit, and you're not even a real rabbit, you're a photograph of a rabbit. And then in my mind, I heard this voice that said, just get on with it. And I said, can you hear me? He said, yes, just get on with it. And I'm like, what? And I thought, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm being brainwashed by the energy of the group all believing this. I thought, well, I'm going to have to look like I'm doing something. So I asked this photo of a rabbit, what's your favorite food? And in my mind's eye, I saw pictures of green leaves. Who's your best friend? Again, in my mind's eye, just like an image that we see when we're dreaming, I saw the image of a dark coffee colored rabbit, like an espresso. And then I asked, what's your favorite activity? And I'm just asking these questions silently in my mind. And this time I saw an image of a sofa, and I'm like, what? I'm just making all this up. And then we had to share, and I shared this with my partner, the rabbit's guardian. And she said, well, no, his favorite food isn't green leaves. It's something else. And I'm like, I immediately see, just dismiss it all completely because this one thing is wrong. But then she went on to say, actually, he is bonded with a dark coffee colored rabbit, and I do rabbit rescue, and he's the only rabbit that she's the only one that is that color. I'm like, okay. And then I expected her to laugh when I said sofa was his favorite activity. And she said, well, yeah, you're really quite close, because what he likes to do is he likes to sit on the sofa every Saturday night and watch TV. And it's not like any program, it's one program, and it's You've Been Framed. And I'm like, what? Because, of course, in my experience, rabbits are in hutches outside in the garden, not inside. And why would a rabbit want to watch TV? And why that particular program? So I started having all these questions. But that didn't persuade me that this was authentic. It was actually when my partner, who had a picture of Texas, she described my hallway, which is very distinctive. She described how to reach my living room, where my sofa was positioned, and the color that I call it was not a color that most people would call that sofa. And Texas's favorite place in the garden and what he liked to sit on. And it was at that time, because we'd moved, it was a tree stump log, and we'd moved it. So it was on the right, not the left. And it's like, she knew all this. And so when I was driving home, I was thinking, oh my goodness, if this actually works, if this is real, then not only can I communicate with Texas, and I can communicate with Morgan and work out why he's sad and help him, but it goes wider than that. What about all the cows that we can communicate with, all the chickens and all the sheep and all the other animals, all the animals in zoos or used in circuses? Suddenly I started thinking about the wider world. And I went home, and my partner said, how was it? And I said, well, I think I've just been talking with a rabbit. And to credit, she said, what did the rabbit say?
Well, that's a perfect reaction.
And then I just thought, I've got to find out more. So I went on a second workshop, and excuse me, on that second workshop, suddenly, you know, it all, the light bulb went on. And I went, my God, this is the thing. This is that job that I didn't have a name for. I didn't know what it was, but I kind of knew it was out there. This is the thing. And it felt so strong in me that this is what I meant to do. And it was just that instant for me. So then, of course, well, then I've got to train, right? If I want to move from theatre stage management that I've been doing for 15 years to great success into a role that I've only just discovered and probably other people don't even know of, I need to get good at this so that I can do it. So I trained and I discovered more, and I went to workshops and I did lots of case studies, and then I was questioning, and I think the cat people will appreciate this, I was questioning whether now was the right time. And I'd got my work bag upstairs in a room, and it was one of those, you know, that opens like that. And for the first time in his life, and he's never done this ever and never did it after, Texas climbed into the bag with all my work stuff in there, and he literally emptied his full bladder on everything in the bag.
Well, that's a clear message.
That's a clear message. He's like, over, okay? How clear do I have to be with you? It's over. Now is the time. You got to make the leap, you got to have faith, and you just got to keep going and see it through. So that was my entry into animal communication in, it was 2005-06, and I have been working as a professional animal communicator full-time ever since for over 20 years now.
Wow. So how did people around you in your life reacted to such a change of career?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Most people were okay with it, particularly my theatre colleagues they're really okay with it. And maybe that's because in theatre we're constantly, you know, having our beliefs questions and we feel. There was one of my very closest friends couldn't get her head around it at all, and that relationship did fail because of that. But then on the other side, you know, my mother-in-law was great. So, you know, what I discovered actually kind of really is who's your real friends, those that are going to support you, whatever, and those that. So it was a mixture.
Yeah. So what is animal communication like? Like, how do animals communicate? You already described that you got like images. Do they always communicate in images, or is it like whole sentences as well, or feelings, or how does it work?
Yeah. So we receive the information from the animal. They're not talking English or whatever language you're speaking. What's happening is we're receiving electromagnetic energy, so impressions of energy that our sensory field receives as either images, like I said, that we perceive with our mind's eye, emotions that we feel within our body, physical sensations that we can feel inside our own body, but we also can get drawn to the animal in front of us to a certain area that might be energetically imbalanced, sore, sick. And there's also smells and tastes that we can receive and kind of taste briefly ourselves and smell ourselves. And then there's the thought forms, which I know that some people call mind words. And that's my strength. So we have these neurological pathways, and depending on what we do, like for a job or the most each day, that will be the pathway that's the most developed. And so for me, because I worked in theatre for 15 years, listening to words, literally in the rehearsal room, listening to the actors, waiting for the director to tell me what they wanted, then in the theatre, again, listening to the actors in order to cue the scenery change or the lighting or the sound or another actor onto stage. That has become my strongest pathway, only because I've been honing it for 15 years. You know, I've already had training in it, essentially. So I can receive the energy, and then that gets translated into a language that I comprehend.
So then it gets you form words that you can share with people.
Yeah, I form words that I can then share with my clients when I'm communicating with animals. But it's not always words. It's normally a mixture, and it really depends on the animal and how they like to communicate. They're not always going to share words. Sometimes they can be really emotional. Like I've just been talking with an animal who was just incredibly emotionally open. And so a lot of the responses were emotionally based. And then there'll be others who it's all about the images. So it's kind of good. So once you start really practicing this, if you can start expanding your senses, then you get much more information in detail, which is really helpful.
And are there any differences between like specific species? Like, do they tend to communicate in a specific way? Like, how do you communicate cats, for example?
How to communicate with cats? Let me ask Texas. I've show you Texas. So this is Texas.
Aww. Beautiful
Te
ginger boy.
Yeah, he is. Texas helped me write my third book, which is Animal Communication Made Easy. He literally stood, well, he sat between me and the keyboard when I was writing that book, and he would instruct me what was missing. Like he'd say, you need to write more about the ethics. So how do you communicate with cats? Honestly, you communicate with cats the same way as you communicate with all species on the planet, but there are a few nuances. So with cats, they're different to dogs. Dogs are generally really keen to please and to communicate, and they will meet you halfway with the communication. Where with cats, I find if I need to be much more reverent, I really need to honor who they are. And sometimes flattery does work with cats. And just take my time and know that I'm not in charge, that I'm meeting them in this beautiful relationship where they get a lot of say on where we go with the communication. So it's slightly different where a dog will, and I'm really generalizing, and I hate generalizing because they're all individuals and they all have completely different characters and life experiences. So it depends on the individual, but dogs are generally a bit more giving in communication, where cats, you need to just be a bit more honoring in order to meet them.
It's funny because that's perfectly illustrates what we all feel that we live with cats, right? That like they are the personalities and we need to honor them, and we're really just the servants, aren't we?
Yeah, I think my current cat, Frankie, currently thinks I'm a door slave because she was starting to go on my mantelpiece and threatened to scratch the wallpaper. So I said to her, you don't need to do that. If you want me to open the door for you, all you have to do is just put your paw on the door. So now it's like, it's constant. It's paw on the door. Let her out. Then she comes back. It's let her in. So I am the door slave of the family right now. I need to talk more about this and reiterate that the cat flap is a really good thing.
Yeah, I can relate because when I worked on my book, I closed the door to my room. But of course, the moment I closed the door, my ginger cat, Apricot, he's just so annoyed that the door is closed. So he starts scratching it. So I opened the door. He comes in. He stays for like 2 minutes and wants to go out again. And then he wants to go in again. So I'm like, can't write like this. Like, you decide, in or out.
They
So
just want to be able to exercise their own free will, you know?
yeah. But it's so funny because as you say, like they're all different personalities. I had three brothers from the same litter, and they were all completely different. One of them already unfortunately passed away. That's the one I'm actually writing my book about, inspired by him. And Apricot, as I just described, he would scratch the door. He wants to get in, and he's got like this annoyed attitude that the door is closed. Like, and the other one, Aragorn, he would just stand in front of the door and look at the handle and just waiting for the door miraculously to open. And the impression he gives is more like, "Am I not allowed in? That's sad." Like,
oh, maybe he's trying to use his like Yoda power to
yes.
and open the door.
Yes, which of course in the end always works, because I do notice him in the end and open the door. So, but it's just so funny how they're both different.
Yeah, impatient and patient.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, so do tell us about your cats. Like, who was your first cat love? Where did it start?
Well, the first family cat was actually a female tortoiseshell called Pixie, and the experience with her taught me quite a lot actually, because what happened was there was a family that had her, and they went on holiday for a really long time and hadn't made any provision for her at
Mm,
all. I think they just thought that she could survive outside, and they were gone a long, long time. And she used to come to us, and my mum used to feed her. And so over time, when they came back, they said, what's going on with my cat? And I believe my mother said something like, "Listen, you obviously don't really want her. I'm happy to have her. We can take her in and we can look after her and pay all the bills." And they just gave her up. And so that was my first experience of looking after an unwanted animal,
mm,
essentially, and caring. And she was very torty and such a queen, and a very calming presence. She was just fabulous. And that her passing was also my first experience of an animal transitioning who I loved. And then Winston came into my life, who was a pale ginger, and he really was the first big love of my life.
mm,
He was so cool, big ginger boy, but very pale and very loving, and he wanted to be on my lap all the time. And I love that. My upbringing, my family, it wasn't the warmest, and yet there was this cat who just loved on me all the time.
mm,
And when I left home to go to theatre school, I used to go home literally just to go and visit him.
mm,
And when he did pass, and I got the phone call to say he has passed, I was devastated. I really was devastated. It was really the first agony of the loss of an animal companion.
mm,
And it's different to a human because they give so much love, and it's so unconditional. It doesn't matter how we look, what our day is happening, whether we achieve something, where we haven't. They just love us the same. um, and then later on, of course, so then I went to theatre school, no animals. And it wasn't until I settled down with my partner that we then went to Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, and we adopted Texas. And he was a kitten at the time. He was 6 months, and he was allowed out of his cage, and he just wrapped his body around our legs. And it's like, yeah.
mm.
So then Texas arrived, and he's incredibly loving, and just wanted to be around me all the time, and just the best cat. I mean, he also had his personality. I was living in a flat, and it was in like a maisonette, so there was a ground floor flat and upstairs flat, which is where I was. And I would look out a window and I would see him just across a very central and a small space into the bedroom of the flat next door, and he'd be sleeping on their bed. And he did quite a lot. He literally would leave us and go and sleep on, when they went out to work, I don't know what happened. He'd get in and sleep on a bed. And on the other side of us, downstairs, he'd go and sit on the window. This our neighbors told us. He would sit on the windowsill, which meant open the door, and he'd walk through their house to the back where they'd open the back door so that he didn't have to go around the whole street in order to get to the back of the house. So he worked the neighborhood to his advantage.
That's awesome. Only cats can do that, seriously.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, thankfully, our neighbors both sides really loved him, so it was good.
And now you have a cat named Frankie, I believe.
Yeah, so she's got a big story with her. So after Texas transitioned again, I was grieving really deeply, and I couldn't even think about bringing another cat into my life. And it was 2 years, and I'd got COVID. I was feeling rubbish, and yet I'd done some kind of online event which one of my students in France had watched, and she was fostering feral kittens when her friend said, "Listen, I've got a feral kitten. Can you look after?" So she'd fostered Frankie, but she said during the event, this kitten was suddenly came to life and was trying to get into the screen when she heard my voice. And she told me, she said, "I think she wants to talk to you. She's trying to get to you." I said, "Okay. Can you play the replay tomorrow? Because I've had a number of people say that there's something about my voice that cats will respond to, and dogs, and in fact parrots. So it depends on the species." And so she played it again the next morning, and then this time Frankie's even more deliberately trying to get into the phone to reach me. And I said, "Okay, yeah, it does sound like she wants to talk. So send me a picture." I printed off Frankie's picture of her being a tiny kitten. And I was just moving from this space where I've got technology into another space, my lounge, where I could just sit quietly away from, all of the work. But even halfway down the hall, I'm hearing her in my head saying, "I want you. I want you." Oh my goodness. So then I said, "Okay, why?" And then we started having a conversation, and she just was adamant that she had to come and live with me. And I said, "Well, it's going to be difficult. There's COVID, and you're in the deep south of France, and I'm in London." And she said, "It will be easy." And it turned out it was easy. My friends supported me, and we hired a very expensive company where one man literally makes the whole trip down to the south of France, helps with all the paperwork, and then brings her back with a stopover, and then drives her all the way to my home. And so she got the 5-star treatment. And I communicated with her. Well, before I communicated with her to say, "This is what's going to be happening." And she just kept going, "Okay, okay, okay." At the hotel, the guy took her out and said, "She's, currently on the pillow next to my head." And I asked her, "How are you? How's everything going?" She said, "Yeah, okay." And she was really, really relaxed. It's because she knew what was happening. She knew she wanted to be here. And when she arrived, I picked her up onto my chest, and I've got a photo somewhere. I mean, it was just, I'm home. And she was so happy. And she just broke into purrs. So I got this tiny weeny kitten, too young, really, to be honest, but she would have died otherwise. And she literally glued herself onto my heart area and purred into my body. And I think she helped me get better from COVID. And yeah, and the story, then I realized that the vet had put down that her birth date was exactly the date that Texas had transitioned 2 years before. And I was receiving all these different signs, like one was on social media where there was an image of legs and a cat, and saying, "When a cat chooses you, you're very honored." And it was just this constant reminder that she was meant to be here, and I just needed to surrender to that and allow it to happen for whatever reason. And she's been she is a completely magical presence in our lives.
Oh, it's beautiful story. It's beautiful. And the power of communication there, because otherwise you would have never connected with her.
Yeah,
That's
I wouldn't have
amazing.
trusted the signs. I would have pushed it away. And
Mm.
then in communication, it was very clear that she had to be here.
That brings me actually to a question of because I tend to look after stray animals as well. And I always try to figure out what's best for them, and I never know what they want actually to have a home. Are they happy the way they're living? Because where we look after stray animals, it's like a colony of gardens. Like in the UK, you would call it allotments, but they are much more bigger gardens. They look like literally like a garden you would have with a house, but they're just without the house. And it's kind of safe area. There's a lot of cats living there. And just recently, when we saved the one last week, we saved her because she was coughing. She was really ill. So I knew she wouldn't survive outside if I let her leave. But I never know, like, does she want to go back? Does she want to be with someone, have a home? Like, can animal communication, if we learn it, help in these situations to find out what the cats want, if they have an owner, even we're trying to figure that out sometimes as well.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, obviously it's going to be a huge help. A, because you'll receive information, but also I think the biggest point is that you're honoring the animal's agency and their free will and ability to choose. It's very easy to be very human centric about how we treat animals, but we need to put the animals first. And so by asking them, you know, how are you liking your life like this? And then giving them the other option by picturing it and describing it and saying this is how it could be potentially. You know, how would you like me to try to arrange that kind of life for you? Or are you strongly rooted to this kind of life? And say, you know, if you get sick here, um, it's going to be harder to treat you. But if you have this kind of life, you'll have a guardian who will be able to take you to a cat doctor who will be able to help you. So it's just about explaining it all, picturing it as clearly as you can, and doing what we should always do, which is giving the animal the choice and respecting them and their agency.
so is it actually easier to connect with animals we live with, we know really well, or say like a stray cat like that you just come across, which is more difficult, or is it the same?
I think most people struggle more with their own animals because what comes up is, well, I know them so well. I think I know what the answer would be. And so what happens, we get in the way
Mm.
of the clear connection with them.
Yeah.
The other thing, I'm just hearing your cat speaking and wanting to answer this question.
Oh, really?
The other thing is that humans have, okay, so this is what's this cat called?
Is it Aragorn, I suppose? He's here.
Okay, Aragorn. So, okay, Aragorn. Um, People have such big egos that they always think that they know everything and they don't know anything at all, really. We cats know much more than they do because we pay attention and we feel into situations much deeper than humans who just seem to bypass everything that's going on around them. So if it's easier to communicate with your cat, me, right here now, it would be if you just bypass your ego and just allow me to speak to you the way that I'm speaking to P. That's what he just said.
Okay, sounds about right. Anything else, Aragorn?
Not the moment.
Okay, all right,
Question,
okay,
question answered.
all right, got it. Wow, okay. So obvious question would be, since we're still talking about cats, and you described your cats and Is there anything in particular you learned from them that you would say inspired the way you live your life or approach your life? Like anything specific your cats taught you?
I would say that Texas has taught me to be more honest, to step more into integrity, to deeply honor the sacred kinship with all life, much more than I ever did before, to trust my heart deeply, to listen to the intuitive nudges and follow them like a track, and to ultimately to really believe in myself.
Mm.
He has really taught me this. Very cat.
Very cats, yeah, that's very true. Yeah, if I'm learning one thing from cats, even without communicating with them, is to believe in yourself, to have their confidence.
Yeah.
So, is there any specific, probably not one, but what comes to mind if I would ask you what was one of the most powerful animal communications you received? Is there any particular story?
Most powerful. The trouble is, there's so many powerful ones, and it's all subjective. I mean, the most recent powerful one after Frankie and our communication and her coming into my life was with a lion. If we're going bigger cat, I was facilitating one of my animal communication retreats, and this one was in Botswana. And every morning I would ask people to come into circle where we would ground into the land and put out the invitation to the animals in a very respectful way, and just really anchor in the heart energy before we got onto the Jeep and left. And during that, and I think it was the first day in, where was it? It was in Kasane, after that, Samburu. No, it might have been in Kasane, where we were in circle, and I feel something different happening, and my body knows that an animal is wishing to connect with me. And this can happen on a train. I had one dog connect with me as I was on a train returning home from a workshop, and I feel my body. It's like a receiver on a radio. You know that something is coming in, and you don't know what it is until it's there. And what happened was I saw this huge lion face in front of me in my mind's eye, like in the middle of the circle, just the head, no body, but the mane, beautiful brown mane, but also then black mane. You know, this is an older lion. And he said something like, welcome to my land. And it was so huge. It was welcome to my land. You are here for a purpose. Remember your purpose. And then he instructed us. So I'm relaying what I'm hearing to the group as he's speaking. As I'm receiving that energy thought form, I'm then just verbalizing it so everybody can share in it. And he reminded us that we were here to really enter into communion with the animals, not as observers, but with them. And he said, so put your phones down, put your cameras down, and look into my eyes. And he said a few other things. And we were like, okay, thank you. Ended circle, got on the Jeeps, off we're going. And the plan was that we were going to go to Marabou Pan. And very quickly, the guide, the driver, turned around to me and said, I've just got word that there's a lion. Do you want to go and see this lion? He's not far. And I turned around to people in the Jeep, and they were like, yes. And so we changed our plans. We went to where there had been a sighting, And we had 2 jeeps, and then there was one other jeep. It's, it was really deserted. It was great. And across the savannah, it was kind of really open savannah and then tree line, and the trees met like that. And at the point there were 3 giraffes looking into the bush. And you're kind of like, okay, so they're seeing someone, they know someone's there, but they're not too worried. But then they started to walk off, and they're walking off down this way along the tree line. And then honestly, you could just play the Lion King music, because then out of the center of that join walks this huge, huge lion presence, this massive energy. And he's got this brown golden mane, and he's got the deep black mane. And he is the same lion that came to us in circle. And he doesn't follow the giraffes. He comes directly, diagonally across the savannah to where our vehicles are. And he comes to us, and everyone's respecting. Everyone's got cameras down in our 2 jeeps. The other jeeps, they were still acting as tourists. And we're all doing as requested. We're looking into his eyes, and everyone said it's like he looked directly at me. So somehow he seemed to look at every single pair of eyes, and there were 13 of us. And he walked through between our 2 vehicles and then headed off that way. And it was so profound. It wasn't just a lion walking towards us. It was the lion that welcomed us to his land, apex predator, king of the jungle, and instructed us how to enter into communion with him. And then it didn't end there. Our driver said we could move. I think I know where he's going to come out. So we went around, and then the other vehicle came around and joined us. And we were waiting patiently. You don't rush animals. You don't rush nature. You start to move into a much slower, natural rhythm of the natural world. And then he came around the corner, and then suddenly we see him, and he's walking down this sand path directly towards us. And he's looking at us and looking at us and looking at us, and he's slow and he's purposeful, and you just feel this huge energy kind of like just hit your heart, and you're kind of speechless. It's like you stop breathing, really. And then he walked in front of us, and then I started to receive some communication with him that was private. And then he started to walk away. I thought that's, one of those moments that's up there, when that was animal initiated interspecies communication in the moment. And it was beautiful. And that's how it can be if we are open to what's really innate, and everyone can do it with just a little bit of honing. Communicate with other members of the animal kingdom, which we're a part of.
Yeah, and which we so often forget.
Yeah, because there's this separation sickness. We're taught all the time that we're separate, and we're not separate at all. We're part of nature. We are nature.
Which brings me to the next question, which you already kind of answered, if anybody can learn animal communication.
Yes, I believe that anyone can learn it. I believe that people give it a go and give up very quickly. They're expecting it to be like that. And if you have been living most of your life in a different way of relating to animals and then expect it to happen just instantly, it's not always going to do that for you. It can for some people, but it's not always like that. It's, it's remembering a language that we've kind of lost or forgotten. And just like if I was to learn Italian, which I love Italian, it's going to take me a while to get proficient in that language. And so we have to put the effort in, and we have to be consistent, and we need to practice. And if we're willing to do that, then we can start having these incredible conversations with other animals.
And is there anything in particular that can help us in that process? Like, I don't know, like some sort of meditation or any other practices to help us, I don't know, calm the mind or something?
I honestly think the most productive thing that anyone can do to help them access it and access it quicker is to find a teacher who they resonate with. because that's how I managed to grow mine so quickly. Is I had a great teacher called Amelia Kincaid. So if you can enter into a workshop, whether it's online or whether it's live, I think that is a really, really great way. And also you have the group energy with you, which helps an awful lot. So that would be my first thing. Find a teacher that you trust, that you resonate with, and learn with them. And then the second thing would be to practice stillness, practice quiet. Really, when the weather's nice, go out, stand still, sit in nature, and just really start focusing on becoming present. And the more you practice that, your senses will open and things will start to filter in. So those two things I think are really, really beneficial. If anyone's interested, I've also got books that can help. My first book, Heart to Heart, is how I entered into communication and started to hone the skill with lots of case studies. My second book I wrote with Morgan, which is The Animal Communicator's Guide Through Life, Loss and Love, about how animals experience end of life, transition, and then what they are communicating from the other side of life, the afterlife. And then also I've got the how-to book that I co-wrote with Texas, which is Animal Communication Made Easy. So those are really good starting points as well.
You also have an online course, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. I have 2 online courses at the moment. I have Animal Communication Made Easy, the online course, which is self-paced. So you can take it in your own time. It can fit around your other commitments and work life. I'm currently teaching a course with a shift network called Sacred Kinship with the Animal Kingdom, which we're about to finish the course, but you will be able to purchase that after as a self-paced course.
And you have a workshop coming up in London this September. And I really I'm hoping I will be able to attend myself, because I really want to learn this skill. Especially since this year, my cats are 14 years old and we've been having some behavior troubles, and I'm like, I would really love to know how I can help them. So that's why I actually also came back to your work and your books, and I'm like, I really need to find a way to learn this and explore this. And so I was wondering, would you suggest attending a workshop like that first and then maybe continue with the course, or the other way around, or what would the advice be there?
My advice would be, if you could make the workshop, jump at it fast, only because I've not taught workshops for a few years in Europe, and this is the only one I'm teaching in person live this year. So 19th of September, if you're able to come to London, it's central London, it's really easy to fly in, and we'll get a train to the venue. I'd highly recommend coming to a group live workshop with me, my energy, the group energy, and practicing together. And then you can take that experience and move that forward, whether that's through books or courses.
So you started talking about the afterlife as well, which was my next question. Can we communicate with animals once they leave their physical form? And is that any different?
Okay, the best way to answer this question is for Texas to answer it, and Texas has transitioned.
Amazing.
So the answer to can we will be yes immediately. Okay, so what would you like to say about this? I'm just in the next room, except you can't see me. I'm as close to you now as I ever was. We don't go away to some far-off land never to be seen again. Our presence, our soul, the energy in the heart of that animal that you knew and you loved in your life in the physical is still existing close to you and continues to love you each and every day. The afterlife is a funny concept because really it's the next life, the next to you life, the next door life, the next room life, the right next to where you are right now life. But in all seriousness, I know that people suffer grief, and they suffer grief because of the physical loss of that beloved animal that they cared for however long, that reached deep into their heart and opened it wider than they ever thought possible. And that grief is real, and it is to be honored, because that is the reflection of your love. Your love for this animal and their love for you. And that grief does subside over time. It rises up occasionally at trigger points, but it's always underlined by that huge loving presence that you had, that love that you had for each other, and the love that continues to exist after the soul leaves the body and the body goes back down to earth. Life doesn't end when the body ends.
Okay, that made me all teary. That's actually something I've understood from your books, where you describe a lot of the workshops you led yourself or you've attended, or even the case studies, that they are, especially the workshops, very emotional experiences, that there's a lot of healing happening, a lot of tears, and that it's like really unlike anything else. It's more than just learning.
It is, because animal communication is essentially part energy. So how can we communicate if our heart is all closed for whatever reason? So the first thing that the animals, it's not me, I'm not like making people sad and making them cry, but the first thing that the animals do, whether they're the guest teachers or people's own animals or each other's animals, they will try to gently open the heart a little bit more. And they do that really by love, by offering love and humor.
Oh, yes. I can imagine, especially with kids.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of universal message you'd say that animals want us to know?
Yes, there is, and it really comes from the whales, but it's reiterated through a lot of species. Know who you are. That is the one. If we only knew who we were, who we are, our lives would change immeasurably, because we are honestly so much more powerful than we are led to believe. And so the more you communicate with animals, the more you understand that message deeply, and that your power isn't forceful power, it's heart energy power. It's about kindness, it's about presence, it's about respect, it's about honoring not just animals, but other animals called humans as well. And really respecting our place in the natural world as part of nature. So this is the message that comes through most species a lot, but the whales carry it very strongly.
That's fascinating. So basically, animal communication ultimately makes us better and kinder human beings as well, because it opens us.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
that's beautiful.
spot on. Animal communication, communicating with other animals makes us a better species,
Yeah, yeah, that's
better humans. Animals can teach us how to be human.
which is funny, isn't it? We need other species to teach us how to be human. But
And we need that because there are so many distractions in the world that pull our attention and call us into consumerism and everything else that's going on. But animals, they don't care less about all of that, you know.
Yeah. We are led to believe other things are more important, while what's important is being here, experiencing life, being kind. And yeah, I think anyone who shared life with an animal already feels that, but this is next level, what we can learn. Anything you would like to add or text us?
The biggest message that I and the animal kingdom wish to share with you and your listeners is that life really is about love. Anchor that message now and return to it often. It's all about love.
If you enjoyed our conversation with P and are intrigued to learn more about animal communication and connect with P, you will find more information on her workshops, courses, and books, as well as her membership on her website at animalthoughts.com. And you can also find her on Instagram at Pea Horsley or on Facebook at Animal Thoughts. All links are in the show notes. Now let's hear some more animal wisdom, this time from your Cat Coach Princ. Hello folks, Cat Coach Princ here. So summer is upon us, and I don't know about you, but I am not a huge fan of the heat. Although I do much better with it than, say, Aragorn. It's probably because I have this ability to stretch myself into a thin, long cat, which creates a bit more room for ventilation. Unlike being a big fluffy ball. I got very good at it over the years, actually, as well as finding the coolest spots. But anyway, there is one thing about summers I really love, and that's spending the cool mornings and especially evenings out on the balcony, just dozing off. Nothing quite beats that. Especially if you can tuck your nose into the lobelias whenever you feel the need for some blissful infusion. So while summers could be tough, and I would often get ill too, this always makes the season worth it for me, because it offers joy and bliss unlike any other. This is true for every season, really, just as every season in life. There is always something unique about it, offering joyful opportunities that you won't find during any other part of the year or life. So look for those joyful experiences, the things that bring you utter bliss, the things that when you tuck your nose in, just make you an extra happy cat. And once you find them, make sure to make time for them daily, because bliss truly is the main ingredient of life. So whether you enjoy picking up those weird red tiny balls and eating them instead of playing with them, or whether you like to jump into water, which no sensible cat would ever do, but hey, to each his own. Just make sure those moments are part of your days, especially those days that seem unbearable otherwise. A spark of joy can turn everything around. I, for one, will stick to my blissful evenings on the balcony, which bring joy to my heart unlike any other. And you, my dear humans, do me a favor and do two things during summer. Look for best ways to stay cool and the best ways to experience joy. And remember, extra long evenings offer extra room for joy. If you enjoyed this Cat Coach Diaries by your Cat Coach Princ, you will find many more Cat Coach Diaries on my Substack at moneyforce.substack.com. Just as Princ suggested, June and summer is a beautiful invitation to seek joy. So get together with your friends on Midsummer Night and celebrate life with good food and dance around the fire. And then do it again throughout summer. In my opinion, as well as Princ's, summer evenings are just the best. So let's make the most of them, as well as the abundance of seasonal produce we are gifted with during this time of the year. And then when it all gets a little too much, perhaps let's take some mindful walks. Summer offers a spectacular scene. Though it is hard to believe, after summer solstice, the sun begins to turn to the dark side again, which means the days are getting shorter yet again. So pay attention and don't let them slip away. And with that, I shall say my goodbyes. This is the end of season 2 of the Cat Coach Café. It has been such a pleasure to walk through the seasons with you all, and I cannot wait to do it all over again, once the darker days arrive once more and the heat of the summer subsides. Before you go though, don't forget to subscribe to Cat Coach Café on Substack to get notified when the season 3 arrives, and also to not miss any of the Cat Coach Diaries, which will keep coming during the summer month. I would absolutely love to hear your feedback as well and learn what you would like more of in season 3, even any guest suggestions. And if you enjoyed our time together, any contribution over on Ko-fi would help so very much to bring you more episodes in the future. All links are in the show notes as always. With so much love from your cat coaches and me, have the most beautiful summer. Until next time, stay cozy, stay warm, and cuddle those cats of yours.